I am about to show you 11 completely innocent mistakes that are artificially raising your blood pressure numbers right now. You might be doing everything your doctor asked, but a simple error at the kitchen table can make your readings look dangerously high. The truth is, the order matters, and you might be getting medicated for numbers that are not even real. I remember a man named Arthur, who was 68 years old, whose numbers were always spiking in the mornings despite him feeling completely fine. He was dealing with unexpected fatigue and a lot of daily anxiety simply because his testing routine was hiding his true measurements and making him worry about his heart. Your doctor might have been telling you slightly outdated information about how to monitor yourself at home, leaving you confused about what your numbers actually mean. Before we dive in, drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and whether you've struggled with confusing blood pressure readings before. I want to hear your experience. 1. You must always use the restroom and completely empty your bladder before you even sit down to put the blood pressure cuff on your arm. This is a crucial step because relieving that internal abdominal pressure stops your body from sending false distress signals that artificially spike the top number on your monitor. A patient named Robert, who was 68 years old, came to see me because he was terrified that his morning readings were suddenly soaring into dangerous ranges. He had a strict routine of waking up, walking straight to the kitchen table, and immediately wrapping the cuff around his arm before doing anything else, including using the bathroom. His doctor saw his logbook and almost increased his daily medication, assuming his current dose was no longer protecting his heart. Robert was frustrated because he felt perfectly fine and was maintaining a very consistent diet, yet the machine kept insisting his pressure was dangerously uncontrolled. What Robert did not realize is that while he was sleeping, his bladder was slowly filling up over the course of 7 or 8 hours, creating a significant amount of internal physical pressure in his lower abdomen. When your bladder is full, it begins to send urgent signals to your nervous system, subtly triggering a very mild stress response that causes your blood vessels to tighten up just a little bit. This natural tightening is your body's way of managing the internal pressure, but it directly causes the heart to have to push a little bit harder to circulate your blood throughout your body. This means that when you place the cuff on your arm and press the start button, the machine is measuring a temporary, artificial spike rather than your true resting cardiovascular state. We changed Robert's routine so that his very first action upon waking was to walk to the bathroom, empty his bladder completely, and then proceed with his morning checks. The improvement in his daily logbook was immediate and dramatic, simply because he removed that hidden internal stressor before asking the machine to evaluate how hard his heart was working. To do this correctly at home, make sure you do not rush the process of taking your morning measurements, as the sequence of your actions entirely dictates the accuracy of the final number. When you wake up, take your time getting out of bed, walk calmly to the restroom, and ensure you feel completely relieved before you move on to the room where you keep your monitor. After using the restroom, do not immediately strap the device to your arm. Instead, give your body a few moments to recognize that the internal pressure has been fully resolved. This allows the subtle stress signals in your nervous system to quiet down, encouraging your blood vessels to relax back into their normal, unconstricted state. Taking this simple step ensures your heart is beating against its natural resistance, rather than fighting against the temporary strain of a full bladder. 2. You must use a cuff that fits your arm snugly on bare skin rather than placing it over your clothing or using a size that is too small for your body. This ensures the sensor accurately detects the blood flow without squeezing too hard or sitting too loosely, which completely distorts the reading the machine gives you. Susan, who was 72 years old, bought a standard monitor from her local pharmacy but had slightly thicker arms from years of working in her garden. Her readings were always falsely high, and the cuff would aggressively squeeze her arm to the point of pain every time the machine tried to inflate to catch her pulse. She assumed her blood pressure was worsening with age, but the reality was that the machine was struggling to read through the wrong size material. She ordered a large cuff specifically designed for her arm size, and her readings instantly became accurate, showing normal ranges without any pain. The mechanism inside your home monitor relies on a very sensitive microphone and pressure sensor that needs to rest directly against the artery in your upper arm to listen to the pulse correctly. When you use a cuff that is too small, the machine has to overinflate to an extreme degree just to stop the blood flow, which causes the final numbers to register much higher than they actually are. Placing the cuff over a long-sleeved shirt or a sweater creates a physical barrier that muffles the sound of your pulse, forcing the machine to guess and often resulting in an inaccurate, elevated top number. The cuff needs direct contact with your bare skin to feel the exact moment the blood starts flowing again after the cuff slowly releases its air pressure. Susan learned that forcing a small cuff to do the job of a large one was creating unnecessary physical stress on her arm, which in itself was causing her nervous system to react and raise her numbers. 3. You must sit with your feet completely flat on the floor and your back fully resting against a supportive chair rather than crossing your legs or slouching forward over a table. This prevents your blood from pooling in your lower body and keeps your heart from having to work extra hard to pump blood upward against gravity while the machine is measuring. David, who was 65 years old, had a long-standing habit of crossing his knees while checking his numbers at his kitchen table every single morning while reading the newspaper. His top number always hovered in a range that made his doctor nervous, even though David walked 2 miles a day and kept his physical activity levels very high. He simply did not realize that the physical posture he assumed during that 2-minute test was actively restricting his circulation and changing the pressure in his arteries. He uncrossed his legs, sat back completely against the wooden chair, and his systolic number dropped nicely into a safe, comfortable range. When you cross your legs at the knee or the ankle, you are physically compressing the large veins that are responsible for carrying blood back up from your legs to your heart. Because the pathway is slightly blocked by your crossed legs, the blood begins to pool in your lower extremities, which temporarily reduces the amount of blood returning to your chest. Your heart immediately senses this slight drop in returning blood volume and compensates by pumping harder and faster to ensure enough oxygen reaches your brain and other vital organs. This automatic bodily response increases the pressure inside your arteries precisely at the moment the machine is inflating, leading to a falsely elevated reading that has nothing to do with your actual health condition. By sitting with your feet perfectly flat on the ground, you open up those vascular pathways and allow the blood to circulate freely without any physical bottlenecks, forcing the heart to overwork. 4. You must remain completely silent for the entire duration of the reading instead of talking, whispering, or actively listening to someone else in the room. This keeps your nervous system entirely calm and prevents the natural vibration of your vocal cords from physically interfering with the sensitive microphone inside the blood pressure machine. Linda, who was 74 years old, always spent her morning measurement time chatting with her husband about the daily news while the machine beeped on the kitchen table. Her numbers were consistently erratic, jumping up and down day by day, which led to a lot of confusion during her regular checkups at the clinic. A recent study revealed that even casual talking or simply focusing intently on what someone else is saying bumps the numbers up significantly because it engages the brain and raises the heart rate. She practiced sitting in absolute silence for 2 full minutes during the test, and her numbers instantly smoothed out and became highly predictable. Many people do not realize that the simple act of speaking requires a complex coordination of your brain, your lungs, and your vocal cords, all of which require energy and blood flow. When you speak, your breathing pattern completely changes, becoming more irregular as you push air out to form words, which prevents your heart rate from settling into a deep, resting rhythm. Furthermore, the physical vibration created in your chest and neck when you talk can travel down your arm and confuse the highly sensitive sensor inside the cuff. The machine cannot easily tell the difference between the pulse of your blood moving through the artery and the slight physical tremors caused by your voice carrying through your body. Even active listening, where you are paying close attention to the television or someone speaking to you, engages your cognitive functions enough to trigger a mild increase in your baseline pressure. 5. You must wait a little while after waking up to take your reading, and recognize that checking immediately after a very poor night of sleep will always temporarily elevate your numbers. This gives your body's natural morning chemical surge time to settle down and prevents you from measuring the temporary stress of a restless night. James, who was 70 years old, was so anxious about his heart health that he would actually check his numbers at 3 in the morning whenever he woke up and could not fall back asleep. The anxiety of checking in the middle of the night, combined with his body's frustration from not sleeping, spiked his numbers so high that he would stay awake until dawn in a panic. He was exhausting himself with worry, completely unaware that poor sleep naturally raises the pressure temporarily as the body tries to compensate for the lack of deep rest. He switched to morning-only checks after resting calmly in his chair, completely ignoring the machine during the night, and his overall anxiety and his recorded numbers dropped dramatically. When you sleep poorly or when you constantly wake up throughout the night, your body does not get the opportunity to enter the deep recovery phases that naturally lower your heart rate and relax your blood vessels. Instead, a restless night leaves your nervous system in a mild state of physical defense, keeping your vessels slightly constricted to prepare your body for whatever is keeping you awake. Additionally, every single human being experiences a natural surge of waking hormones first thing in the morning, which is designed to raise your blood pressure just enough to get you safely out of bed without fainting. If you put the cuff on your arm the exact minute your feet touch the floor, you are capturing this natural chemical spike at its absolute peak, not your true baseline. Giving yourself time to wake up fully allows this morning surge to wash out of your system, revealing a much more accurate picture of your true cardiovascular status. 6. You must drink a simple glass of water about an hour before checking your numbers rather than taking the reading while your body is mildly dehydrated from a long night of sleep. This keeps your blood volume perfectly steady, so your blood vessels do not have to artificially constrict to maintain the flow of oxygen to your brain. Mary, who was 77 years old, was intentionally not drinking much water in the mornings because she wanted to avoid having to make extra trips to the bathroom throughout the early part of her day. Because she went roughly 10 hours without any fluids, her blood volume dropped significantly by the time she sat down at the kitchen table to use her monitor. Her vessels tightened up to keep the pressure moving, which caused the machine to read a much higher top number than she expected, causing her a great deal of daily worry. She started having a simple glass of pure water when she first woke up, waiting an hour, and her readings completely smoothed out into a safe, predictable range. Overnight, your body naturally loses a significant amount of hydration simply through the process of breathing and the mild sweating that occurs while you are tucked tightly under your blankets. When you wake up, your total blood volume is slightly lower than it is during the rest of the day, which forces your cardiovascular system to make a fast mechanical adjustment. To ensure that enough blood continues to reach your brain and your major organs despite the lower volume of fluid, your blood vessels automatically squeeze tighter to keep the internal pressure firm. This natural survival mechanism is excellent for keeping you upright, but it completely distorts the reading on your machine because the monitor only feels the intense tightness of the vessels. By introducing hydration early in the morning, you restore that lost volume, signaling to your body that it is safe to completely relax the vascular walls. You can do this at home very easily by keeping a standard glass of water on your nightstand or right next to your bathroom sink so you remember it first thing. When you wake up and complete your restroom routine, slowly drink the entire glass of water, making sure it is not freezing cold so it does not shock your stomach. Allow yourself roughly 45 minutes to an hour of quiet morning activity before you sit down in your chair to take your blood pressure measurement for your daily logbook. This hour gives your digestive system enough time to absorb the water into your bloodstream, perfectly plumping up your blood volume and allowing your nervous system to stand down from its dehydrated state. If you find these simple daily adjustments helpful for managing your numbers at home, remember to subscribe so you can continue learning these gentle changes that protect your health. This supports steadier readings by ensuring your cardiovascular system is fully hydrated and not physically forced into an artificial state of stress just to keep your blood flowing. 7. You must wait at least 30 minutes after eating your breakfast or drinking your morning cup of coffee before you even think about taking a blood pressure reading at home. This crucial waiting period allows your digestive system and any mild stimulants you have consumed to begin processing fully without putting sudden, extra physical demand on your resting heart rate. By giving your body this specific window of time, you prevent the natural physiological changes that occur during digestion from creating a temporary spike on your monitor. This ensures that the numbers you record in your logbook reflect your baseline cardiovascular health rather than the immediate aftermath of a meal or a morning beverage. Barbara, who was 62 years old, had a very consistent and comforting morning routine, but she kept her blood pressure cuff right next to her coffee pot on the kitchen counter. She would brew her coffee, pour her first large cup, drink it while standing in the kitchen, and immediately wrap the cuff around her arm to get her daily chore out of the way. Her top number was always artificially elevated, causing her unnecessary concern and making her doctor wonder if her current health plan was simply failing to keep her cardiovascular system stable. She assumed her body was naturally struggling in the mornings, completely unaware that the caffeine in her cup was causing an instant, sharp constriction in her blood vessels right before she pressed the start button. The caffeine spiked her reading artificially every single morning because it temporarily blocks a hormone in your body that helps keep your arteries completely widened and relaxed. In addition to the coffee, the simple act of eating a piece of toast or a bowl of oatmeal forces your body to direct a large amount of blood flow straight to your stomach and intestines to begin the process of digestion. When a significant portion of your blood is suddenly routed to your digestive tract, your heart has to pump a little bit faster and harder to ensure the rest of your body still gets the oxygen it requires. She moved the cuff to her bedside table to ensure she checked her numbers before having her morning cup, and her daily readings instantly smoothed out into a safe, normal range. When you wake up, it is entirely fine to have a small sip of plain water, but you should completely avoid consuming any food or caffeinated beverages until your daily reading is securely written in your logbook. If you absolutely must eat something immediately upon waking because of other health reasons, you must wait a minimum of 30 to 45 minutes before sitting down to use your machine. This gives the caffeine enough time to peak and begin settling, and it allows the initial heavy phase of digestion to pass so that your heart rate can return to a calm, steady rhythm. Keeping your monitor in a separate room from where you eat or drink is one of the easiest ways to break the habit of testing while your body is actively processing your breakfast. 8. You must be highly aware of consuming hidden sodium in supposedly healthy foods like canned soups, breads, and everyday condiments right before you sit down to check your numbers. This prevents sudden and intense fluid retention that creates immediate artificial physical pressure against the delicate inner walls of your blood vessels while the machine is trying to calculate your overall cardiovascular health. William, who was 69 years old, completely stopped using the salt shaker at his dining table and felt very proud of his strict new dietary changes to protect his aging heart. However, he ate a large bowl of canned vegetable soup every single day for lunch, believing it was the perfect healthy meal, and would check his blood pressure shortly afterward in the early afternoon. His afternoon numbers always looked terrible, stubbornly refusing to drop into a safe range, which made him feel incredibly frustrated and defeated despite all his hard work avoiding the salt shaker. He did not realize that a single can of store-bought soup often contains more than half of the daily recommended limit of sodium, completely hidden within the broth to preserve the vegetables on the shelf. The sudden influx of hidden salt caused his body to immediately pull extra water into his bloodstream to dilute the sodium, which rapidly expanded the total volume of blood pushing against his arteries. He switched to explicitly low-sodium versions of his favorite soups and started incorporating fresh vegetables instead, and his afternoon numbers finally leveled out to match his excellent morning readings. When you consume a heavy amount of sodium, even if you cannot taste the salt, your kidneys immediately sense the chemical imbalance and hold on to excess water to protect your system. This extra water has nowhere to go but directly into your bloodstream, which acts just like turning up the water pressure in a garden hose. The pipes are the same size, but the volume of fluid inside them has massively increased. Your heart is then forced to work significantly harder to push this heavy, waterlogged blood through your circulatory system, leading to a drastically elevated top number on your home monitor within just an hour of eating. By strictly avoiding hidden sodium in processed foods, especially in the hours leading up to your daily measurement, you allow your kidneys to properly balance your fluids and keep the pressure inside your vessels completely normal. 9. You must sit quietly in your chair for exactly 5 full minutes before pressing the start button, rather than putting the cuff on immediately after walking around the house or finishing a physical chore. This dedicated period of absolute stillness allows your resting heart rate to return to its true baseline and signals to your nervous system that it no longer needs to supply extra oxygen to your moving muscles. Richard, who was 75 years old, had a routine of checking his numbers in his bedroom, which was located at the top of a rather steep flight of wooden stairs. He would walk up the stairs, walk directly over to his nightstand, slide the cuff onto his arm while he was still catching his breath, and immediately press the start button to get the reading. His monitor constantly alerted him to high numbers, leaving him feeling deeply discouraged because he walked every evening and considered himself to be in very good physical shape for his age. He simply did not understand that the physical exertion of climbing those stairs, or even just walking briskly from the kitchen to the bedroom, requires the heart to pump faster and stronger to support the movement. As long as the heart is still recovering from that mild exercise, the pressure inside the arteries remains artificially elevated, which is exactly what the machine was picking up when he rushed the process. He learned to sit down in his chair and simply look out the window for 5 full minutes before touching the machine, which gave him his true, much lower reading every single time. Let me know in the comments if you usually wait 5 full minutes before checking, or if you rush through it just to get it done, because this is one of the most common mistakes people make. Whenever you move your body, whether you are walking to the mailbox, carrying a basket of laundry, or simply pacing around the living room, your muscles demand a continuous supply of fresh, oxygenated blood. To meet this demand, your blood vessels slightly dilate in your muscles while your heart increases its pumping force, a natural process that takes several minutes to completely reverse once you finally sit down and rest. If you strap the cuff on before this reversal is complete, the monitor is essentially measuring your active blood pressure rather than your resting blood pressure, providing numbers that are entirely unhelpful for your logbook. 10. You must take slow, natural breaths from your belly while the cuff inflates and squeezes your arm, rather than holding your breath or breathing very shallowly out of nervousness or physical discomfort. This deeply relaxing breathing pattern prevents your body's automatic fight or flight response from kicking in when the cuff gets unexpectedly tight, keeping your entire nervous system in a state of calm compliance. Patricia, who was 71 years old, absolutely hated the tight, pinching sensation of the blood pressure cuff, feeling like it was aggressively squeezing her arm every time she had to take a measurement. Because she anticipated this physical discomfort, she would unconsciously tense her shoulder muscles, clench her jaw, and completely hold her breath the entire time the machine was actively pumping air into the fabric sleeve. Because she was holding her breath, her numbers were always incredibly erratic, sometimes jumping 20 points higher than they should have been simply because her body thought it was in a state of sudden physical danger. Holding your breath drastically changes the pressure inside your chest cavity, which physically compresses the large blood vessels near your heart and forces your cardiovascular system to violently adjust the pressure to keep the blood moving. Furthermore, the anxiety of waiting for the machine to beep creates a mental stress loop that causes the brain to release mild stress hormones, instantly tightening the arteries and driving the top number even higher. She learned to focus entirely on taking slow, gentle belly breaths during the reading, completely ignoring the squeezing sensation on her arm, which kept her nervous system perfectly calm and her numbers perfectly accurate. If you are enjoying these detailed explanations of how to protect your health, please take a quick moment to subscribe so you never miss an update on how to manage your daily numbers. When you breathe deeply into your belly, allowing your diaphragm to fully expand downward, You physically stimulate the vagus nerve, which runs from your brain all the way down through your chest and abdomen. This specific nerve is the master control switch for your body's relaxation response. When it is activated by deep, rhythmic breathing, it instantly sends a powerful chemical signal to your heart to slow down. It also commands the tiny muscles lining the walls of your blood vessels to physically relax and widen, which naturally lowers the resistance against your flowing blood and drops the pressure recorded by the machine. By simply changing how you breathe while the machine is running, you can actively override the physical discomfort of the tight cuff and prevent your body from artificially inflating your daily numbers. If you know someone over 50 who could benefit from this, share this video and subscribe for more simple blood pressure tips.